little bit early. One person in, one like. The algorithm is not saying anyone's in, but there is a like for some reason. How weird is that? What's up, Simone? How are you? How are you tonight? Ugh. Gavin, how are you, buddy? Simone and Gavin. Aramek! You were missed last week, my brother. You were missed. I will tell you that much. What's up, Harry? How are you? Hope everyone's doing well tonight. 5 rings. Astro Magnus, how are you? No, don't apologize. You were just missed. We were worried about you. At least this way, at least now, once you saw that, I bet you once you saw that, you were like, they do like me for me, not the memberships I give. What's up, Penguin? How are you? Leah, how are you? I always look forward to the live streams too. Wesley, September, Delirium, how are you, my friend? I got some really good Lizzo stories for you guys tonight. I got a pretty good assortment of regular experiences as well. We're early, so we'll just shoot the shit right now for a little bit. Andrea, how are you tonight? You know, for the 5 years that I've seen Andrea Dingbat's name on here, or not 5 years, 5 years on the channel, maybe six or seven probably, but I never get over the last part of it. I hear you, Aramek. I was drained as well, brother. I am never gonna dye my hair. I'd probably look like a PDO. I think people that dye their hair look weird. You know, like I don't care. Aramek, I hear you. I did do my yard twice and then my parents' yard twice. And I was like, dude, I am beat. New Kimber, nice. Kimbers are always nice. I believe Kimbers, are they still made in New York? I know they were for a long time. Just B, how are you? So I mentioned this band last week. Look at the new shirt. It's an alien on the Sphinx. How cool is that shirt? Jimmy Haunted. What's up, buddy? How are you, brother? It was really shitty snow. Paula, how are you? Edith, how are you tonight? Arthur. Yeah, so I ended up getting back in touch with the lead singer, Lex, and super nice guy. He's got a video of some paranormal stuff that he's experienced that he's going to send me. So nothing weird, Matt. Not really. Not really at all. Troy, how are you from upstate New York? MJ Bates, how are you? Rather, Joel. So yeah, I've got a pretty good stack of experiences for tonight. The Lizzo stories are, I have to say, the Lizzo stories are top notch. Are probably 3 of my better ones, I'd have to say. Conscious Wanderer, how are you? I think we'll start it off. We'll start it off tonight right now. We'll start it off a little earlier than normal. Ryu, Revision, how are you? Random Man! Lizzo? No. Lizzo doesn't mean lizard man. No. You're new to the channel, I'm assuming, Astro Magnus, or new to the live show. Everything on the channel are real, except on the live stream, I do 3 stories because I made a joke a long time ago saying that the most dangerous cryptid in the world is a lot lizard, which is like the infamous truck stop prostitute. And so I do 3 stories every live stream about this woman named Lizzo, the lot lizard, the queen of the truck stop prostitutes. And so that's what they are. But I do have some reptilian experiences in here. SDL, how are you? Aramic loves him some Lizzo. Gives him good dreams. I was in Shenandoah at Strickler Knob about 8 months ago. I ended up camping out there despite 45-degree weather at night. I arrived at a parking area around 7 a.m. and noticed there were no cars. I planned on spending the night and hiking back in the morning since it was quite a drive after hiking the entire route and coming back halfway to set up camp. It was close to 3 p.m. I spent the rest of the afternoon and evening eating food, smoking a little bit of area. After finishing watching a movie on my phone, I decided it was time to call it a night at around 7 p.m. I put all the trash and remaining food items into a bag and hung it 20 feet on a branch about 150 feet away from my campsite. I was extremely tired, so after making sure I was safe from any predators, I went to grab some firewood and prepare to sleep. As I grabbed some dead wood from a huge fallen tree, I heard an extremely intense rustling moving towards me for about 3 seconds that seemed to come from about 100 feet away. It stopped as soon as I stopped and faced the direction of the noise. Totally freaked out, and about 50 feet from my tent, I slowly backed up while shining my flashlight on the area to hopefully expose the source of noise. Nothing. I made it back to my tent, and it was quite dark by this time. I could barely see 10 feet in front of me. It was now roughly 8:15 p.m. I felt extremely unsettled, so I stayed outside of the tent and continued to stoke the fire, which only provided about 5 feet of light in every direction. It almost made me feel like more of a target than anything safe-wise. I finally felt comfortable after no rustling for about 20 minutes, so I headed into the tent for some much-needed rest. Just as I could feel myself transitioning into a deep sleep, I began to hear multiple women wailing in extreme evil chanting manner that sounded like it was about 200 yards from me. It was very muffled and faint. As I came to my full level of awareness, it started to get louder. In a matter of 30 seconds, it sounded like it was less than 50 yards away. I felt a level of adrenaline that I had never felt before. It felt primal, my entire body tensed, like I was hit with a stun gun or an ice bath. I would like to note at this point in the experience that I was no longer intoxicated in any way and was feeling no residual effects from the small bit of marijuana that I had ingested several hours earlier. 3 seconds after the noise got around 50 yards away, it completely stopped. I slowly crawled out of my tent and yelled, "Hey, who the fuck are you?" Completely silence consumed the entire 100-foot open area that I was camped in. I turned on my massive flashlight and shined it everywhere I could see in eerie energy. Nothing. As I made one last round with the flashlight, I saw something that would change my view of monsters and paranormal forever. I briefly saw a woman for about 0.25 seconds who was fleeing from the tree line facing away from me, almost making no noise. She was wearing a medium length white dress with an insane amount of dirt all over it, and she was bald. She had no shoes and was flailing her hands in the air while making no wailing noises anymore. She ran in a way a child would if they were caught trying to sneak up on you. I couldn't even utter a sound. I began to fear for my life so badly. I began to cry, and my face was stuck in a frowning position. I went into full panic mode, grabbed my pack, which was thankfully already set up for my 5 a.m. departure, left my tent, and began running. I started making toward the tree line that markers for the trail started at, and I could see a small light about 200 feet in front of me at the bottom of the hill. I began running at my maximum safe speed, which was about 3.5 miles an hour with a 25-pound pack, considering it was 10:45 p.m. and the terrain was rocky and covered with roots and fine slick dirt. I fell once coming toward the bottom of the first large descent and saw the same woman as my eyes fell toward the ground during my fall. Luckily, I only scraped my knee on some gravel since I stayed on the sides of the trail. I started moving slowly and was constantly looking around, gripping my Benchmade Adamas 375 knife tighter than I ever had. As I approached the last part of that trail, which was totally flat and more grassy, I hadn't seen anything for over 2 miles. Suddenly and violently, I began to hear rustling in every direction, roughly 100 yards away in back of me, and it was coming up fast. I began running at full sprint for the last 0.2 miles of the trail, finally passing the trailhead and approaching the parking area. I made it back to my car, and as I turned around, I saw 3 of those same women I saw before, whom all were crawling on all fours, full speed away from me and towards the trail. As I shined my headlamp on them, I cried for the first 20 minutes after driving at full speed away from that trail, just happy to still be alive and not fully grasping the entire situation. I made it back to 81, and I could still feel the evil of those human-like creatures. Moral of the story, always hike and camp with somebody. Not really down with 3 bald women wandering around the woods. That's not cool. Monkey Crap, how are you? Claire Harris, Nightmare. Robert Sharp, how are you? That's not true, Robert. If you think about what Luke's experiences, I mean, they are a thinking fighter, but are you feeling any better this week, buddy? I hope you are. I mean, the way I look at it is either one of them could get the better of each other. You know what I mean? It just depends. Like, everyone thought Conor McGregor was going to beat the shit out of Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz beat the shit out of Conor McGregor. So, I mean, it just depends on who has the upper hand, who has the strength and such. I would take a bald woman. I would take all of those. What's up, Sean McCabe? How are you, buddy? Absolutely revision. Wiley. Are there dirty fighters though, Delirium? Because the only outcome on a fight is just a win, really. Right? Every live stream, Nexus. Every live stream, there's Lot Lizard stories. Speaking of that, Robert, there's a channel out there that I got, you know how YouTube recommends things to you? I don't watch cryptid channels. I just don't because I can't. But there was a recommendation because I will upload my own videos and I watched the first 5 minutes of them. And so YouTube recommends because of the amount of uploads I put out. So it's like, oh, he watches this. And there was a channel that said man raised Dogman something, and they actually use your first name, but not your last name, Robert. And they didn't. I was thinking about it, and I was like, huh. And I was gonna email you, but it was so stupid that I was like, because they went off your story and not they didn't follow it how they should have. Like if you're gonna copy something, at least like that channel that copied the ambulance driver interview. Yeah, it was definitely a fake story, Smitty. So like they created a story out of a real story. So that's how you know the channel's shit. Absolutely, main house. I mean, a coward, there's really no cheating in a fight. You got to win. The way I look at it, if a Bigfoot and a Dogman are going at it, that Dogman wants to the Bigfoot wants to kill the Dogman. If the Bigfoot picks up a tree and smashes the Dogman in the head with it, that's not cheating. Same way if like I don't know, I was fighting somebody and I picked up a shopping cart and smashed them with it. That would be pretty fucking cool though. I was saying they copied Robert, Matt. You obviously that whole fucking line of words that I spit out, right? Like above your head and below your knees. Because there's multiple stories of dogmen actually looking out for humans. I've actually had a lady on the channel that has interviewed it and shared her stuff. So nerd, but nice one. Brian Mons, what's up, buddy? That's it. Yes, Jespy, you saw that too. Yeah, I literally just said yes. Like there's a lady who was pregnant. There's a lady who was pregnant in South Dakota. She went hiking, right? And she was hiking by herself. Stupid decision. She was probably like 3 months pregnant, a baby bump, right? She sees this weird animal. It's not very big, right? It's not very big at all. And but it looks weird. Everything about it looks very similar to a coyote. It's a little larger, but the paws are odd shaped. Everything's strange, and it's caught in a bear trap or a small like game trap. She is afraid to release it, but it like looks at her in kind of a weird way. She releases it, and it looked at her and ran off. There was that, right? So give or take a while, she had her baby. So 6 months to another 4. Her baby was about 5 months to 6 months old. And she goes back to the same spot hiking because she didn't put 2 and 2 together that it wasn't a natural creature. She's hiking and she comes to this area she's been to a million times. It's in the South Dakota Black Mountains or whatever. She comes to this walled area where she sees this really strange, evil looking creature. And boom, what helps her is that Dogman. At the end of it all, after it gets her out of there, and the two other dogmen that were with her or with him stayed back to keep that thing from attacking her and her baby, it pointed at her belly. It pointed at the baby and kind of showed it its paw, showed her its paw, and then ran off. What's up, Sumner? I'm at my mom's. Tell your mom I said hi, buddy. Crypto Work Pro. Curious question. If it's not a natural creature, what is exactly or where does an unnatural creature come from? Well, it wouldn't be unnatural, it would be supernatural. It's a supernatural creature. And they're either demonic or they come through portals. It's not like, plus the xenocephaly have been in existence for thousands and thousands of years. And if you really go back, Aramic will back me up on this 100%. But if you go back to xenocephaly, when the Watchers came down from heaven and then fell in love with the daughters of men, they bred with the daughters. They did genetic experimentation. They also bred with animals, creating other creatures. And then supposedly the descendants of the original Nephilim, the Raphim, all settled or around Canaan, and Saint Christopher, the dog-headed saint, is from Canaan. He's like 7 to 8 feet in height. But then the xenocephaly also were all around the Indian coast, like India, the Indian coast on an island, and they traded with humans. Humans took advantage of them eventually after 500 years or so, pushed them into the woods. I don't know where Jane is. I would say dogmen and all creatures have different personalities. I don't know. I'll check on her right now. Ugh. You okay? Channel God Mom. Okay. Well, when I had my Dogman experience, I didn't wait around and see. That's what got me into this in 1994. Well, actually, revision. If you really dig deep, the Raphem or whatever is the descendants of the Nephilim, and they settled in Canaan. And I don't believe Cain has anything to do with it. The word is spelled different. It's almost spelled like canine, not Cain. I don't think Canaan has anything to do with Cain, but Aramic would answer that better for me. Aramic really is like an amateur theologian, to be honest with you. And when they settled there were larger people in proportion. I think they're still breeding them? Yeah, absolutely. Last time I talked to Victor before he died, they were. There she is. No, you're good. You're good, revision. Honestly, like if I have any biblical questions or anything like that remotely releases or remote revolves around theology, I would ask Aramaic. Yes, they release them in national parks. They release them everywhere. 100%. And they just there's deep underground facilities all throughout the national parks. Just a weird thing I encountered on my first wedding anniversary. My wife and I decided to make a drive to Colorado Springs on the recommendation of a friend of mine. She had never seen the mountains before, so I figured the Rockies would be perfect. We stayed in a Holiday Inn that was right at the base of a mountain, basically, and had a great view of Pikes Peak as soon as we looked out the window. She was thrilled. She had never seen anything like it before. She was a sucker for the gift shop, so this place was great. We had a great time. Our second day there, we decided to drive up to Pikes Peak, but we were told that at the gate that we could go most of the way up, but the very summit was closed because of too much snow. We could still really get far enough, though. I think Pikes Peak is around 14,000 feet. We got to about 11,000 before it was closed off. So we were right above the cloud line, which was awesome because it just looked like you were looking over an ocean. We stopped at a little rest center on the way up and got a hot chocolate for the drive and a magnet for Colorado since we collected magnets for every state we had to go to. It was pretty cool. We saw a Bigfoot crossing sign going up, Aramaic! Thank you, brother, which was really fun place to take photos in front of. Anyway, once we got to the closed off part of the Pikes Peak, we parked the car, got out, and just kind of took in the view. I didn't think anybody else was up there with us except the guy a little up the way sitting in his truck making sure people didn't go any higher. Even if we couldn't go to the summit, it was still gorgeous. We took some photos, all of which were pretty terrible, and it was pretty cold, but I insisted we buy a 511 jackets, pants, and boots for the trek, and my wife didn't understand why I demanded that brand. But if you're a dude, so you know. So we were pretty toasty. I wandered off and started looking around the rocks and a few trees at the higher elevation. I just like to explore stuff off the beaten path. I heard some snow crunching nearby. I assumed it was another sightseer, so I moved toward the sound of the crunching, but did not see anyone. There's a few trees here and there, but not hard to really see. It was snowing a bit, however, and the wind was blowing the snow sideways. I'd gone pretty far from my wife at this point and didn't want to stray too much further, but I was honestly hoping to see a wolf or something. I found some tracks in the snow, and they were pretty small. The snow was kind of deep, so I couldn't really tell what kind of animal had made them, but it did look like it was quadruped. So I was definitely hoping to see a wolf. I did not see a wolf, didn't see anything. I followed the tracks around the tree and kind of carefully peeked around it, but didn't see anything. The track stopped there, though. I didn't get right up to the tree because if it was a wolf, I didn't want to get face to face with it. I'll also say this: I had no idea if there are wolves in the Rockies. I was just sort of hoping. What I did see eventually was pure white thing scurrying away from the exact location I was looking. It was pure white. I'm not sure if it was invisible or just blended in perfectly with the snow. It moved on all fours. It had a huge bulbous head, kind of like the way you think of a typical version of an alien with a spindly body. Its arms and legs were super skinny, and its body wasn't a whole lot bigger. Its arms and legs themselves were really long. I'd say it was probably between 4 to 5 feet tall if standing upright. It was a bit hard to tell with it anyway, being on all fours and in the snow. It turned around and looked at me, and it had a really small black eyes with no defining features. Its eyes were far apart, almost on the side of its head. Its feet and hands were buried, but when it did went to move, I could see hands. It had fingers that were way too long, almost like ET's, wiry and spindly. It looked at me for just a second and then leapt forward away from me. And as soon as it landed in the snow, it was invisible again, or I just couldn't see it. Then it hopped again, and it jumped a good 6 feet or so from a dead stop and took off running. It ran away from me and scaled some rocks in the distance like it was nothing and crawled along the cliffside. Whenever it was in the snow, it looked invisible. I am not sure if that was because it was all white or because it was actually invisible. Anyway, in a few seconds, it was gone. When I got back to my wife, she was waiting in the car and did not believe a word of it and thought I was trying to scare her. To this day, she still doesn't believe me, and I don't know what it was. I've never heard anything like this, and on the trek back down, I asked the lady at the gift shop if people ever reported seeing any weird things. All she mentioned was Bigfoot. Andy Davis, what's up, buddy? Tracy Thoughts, how are you? Rockin' steady. How are you, brother? Aramic, thank you for the 10 memberships. Donna Harmon, how are you? What does a foot-long sandwich and a have in common? They both, oh boy. I'm not going to even say that one. What's up, Bang? There's my buddy Bang. How are you? Cynthia, how are you? I thought you were both going to say like something real gross, like when you spread them, they both have mayonnaise. We got about 6 inches, Troy. About 6 inches. All right. What time is it? We've been a half an hour in. You know what time it is, guys? What time is it? You tell me. Is it time? Is it time for... Yes, it is. It is, Aramic. It is. I was going to say that, Jarrett, but I didn't want to. Is it Lizzo time? Yes, it is. There's Robert and Jess. Yes, it is time. All right, here we go. We'll start the one with the one that I really that I'm happy with, but I'm not the happiest with. All right. We'll save the last two for last because the last two are great, I think. Now, for anyone that's new to the live stream, these Lizzo stories are the only fictional stories on the show. They are written for fun. I write them for the show and just for the live stream. The fluorescent hum of the Lucky 7 truck stop usually sang a lullaby of industry and weary travelers. a symphony of idling engines and the clink of stale coffee mugs. But tonight, the air thrummed with something else, a low, unsettling vibration that even the grease on the griddle disputed kingdom of Lizzo, the lot lizard queen of the truck stop prostitutes, and tonight her crown felt a little heavy. Lizzo wasn't just a woman. She was a force of nature draped in a custom sequence tracksuit that shimmered like a disco ball on a hot plate. Her smile could melt a frozen heart or crack a windshield, depending on the recipient. With a beehive as formidable as a tractor tire and nails that could pry open a stubborn jar of pickles or a man's wallet, she ruled the patch of asphalt with an iron fist, a generous heart, and an unparalleled ability to spot a bad mood or a loose tooth at 50 paces. Her girls, a diverse motley crew of fellow lot lizards, respected her. The truckers, well, they feared and wanted her, and the highway patrol generally looked the other way. This was her empire, built on the hustle heart and the unwavering belief that everyone deserved a little TLC, even if it came with a price tag. Sugar, you got that vibe tonight, Brenda, a seasoned lot lizard whose foundation could withstand a hurricane, observed, chewing thoughtfully on a stick of gum, like a bad batch of chili. Lizzo, perched on the hood of her pearl white custom Escalade, affectionately dubbed the Thick Express, sighed, exhaling a plume of vape smoke that smelled faintly of blueberry and regret. It ain't the chili, honey. It's the quiet. The kind of quiet that means something's cooking that ain't on the dinner menu. The sky was a bruised purple, bruised like a peach left too long in the sun, and an unnatural stillness had descended. No crickets, no distant rumble of the freight train, just the occasional drip of a leaky gutter and the mournful creak of the Lucky Seven sign swaying in the breeze that wasn't there. Then they arrived. Not in a car, not walking on the highway. They just simply materialized from the shadows between the diesel pumps. Three figures, waddling with an unnerving gait. Their makeup wasn't sloppy, charming kind of birthday party clown. It was meticulously painted horror, stark white faces, framing grins that stretched too wide, revealing far too many teeth. The first, a gangly beanpole of a clown named Giggles, wore a too tight checkered suit and carried an armload of deflated balloons that seemed to writhe or writhe like dying snakes. His movements were jerky, like a marionette with a damaged string. The second, Chuckles, was a hulking brute, his immense body encased in a smeared, oversized jumpsuit. A wide, silent smile split his face. He gripped a novelty hammer the size of a small tree stump, but the way he held it suggested it was anything but novel. The third, clearly the ringleader, was Snickers. He was smaller than Chuckles, but radiated a chilling intensity. His eyes, though, painted with exaggerated sadness and glinted with a predatory intelligence. Hang on, somebody wants to say hi. Oh, Buddy wants to say hi. Jeannie, thank you so much. Good boy, Buddy. Tears like, enough of that shit. Get me down. Thank you, Janie. The third, clearly the ringleader, Chuckles, but radiated a chilling intensity. His eyes, though painted with exaggerated sadness, glinted with a predatory intelligence. And he gestured with a conductor's flourish, his slender gloved fingers ending in surprisingly sharp points. They moved with an eerie synchronicity, their oversized shoes making no sound on the gravel. Lizzo watched them approach. Her initial amusement curdled into a knot of dread. This wasn't a prank. This was frat boys. This was something else entirely. Well, now, Lizzo drawled, her voice a little less confident than usual. Y'all lost? Circus usually is a few exits down. Snickers stopped dead centered in the lot. His painted smile widened impossibly. Lost, he hissed, his voice dry, rasping, whisper like autumn leaves skittering across pavement. Oh no, my dear, we found exactly what we are looking for. A little stage, a captive audience, and some props to play with. His gaze swept across the truck stop, lingering on a few truckers still milling about, a lot lizard who had frozen in place, and Lizzo perched like a queen on her throne. Before anyone could react, Giggles twirled a blur of red and white and thrust a balloon animal, a grotesque elongated dog, into the chest of an unsuspected trucker named Big Jim, who was just coming out of the diner, wiping chili from his beard. The balloon was not rubber; it was metal, sharp, and plunged deep, piercing through Big Jim's denim overalls and into his heart. He gasped a pathetic gurgle and crumpled to the ground, the chili on his beard now mixed with fresh, shocking red. Aramaic! A scream tore through the silence. It was Brenda. Chuckles turned, his silent smile still plastered on his face. With a grunt that seemed to come from the deepest pits of hell, he swung that giant hammer, and it connected with the side of a parked rig with a sickening clang, leaving a huge dent. The driver, a young kid barely out of his teens named Lenny, who had been trying to scramble into his cab, didn't stand a chance. The next swing caught him square in the chest, crushing him against the side of the truck. A wet thud, and Lenny sagged lifeless. Panic erupted. Truckers scrambled for their cabs. Lot lizards shrieked and scattered. This was not a fight. It was a full-on slaughter. Snickers watched, his head cocked. A low guttural chuckle rumbled from his chest. Such vitality, he whispered. Such pancakes. He gestured dismissively at the carnage. Lizzo's blood ran cold and then hot. Big Jim, he was a regular, a kind of lonely soul who always made sure her girls were treated right. Lenny was just starting out, trying to make an honest living. But it was what happened next that snapped something fundamental inside of Lizzo. A young lot lizard, barely 20, named Cherry, tripped over some loose gravel as she tried to flee. She fell, scraping her knee, and before she could push herself up, Giggles was on her. His distorted balloon animal, now a garrote, tightened around her neck. Sherry clawed at it, her eyes wide in terror, but the metal dug in deep, silent, and deadly. No! Lizzo roared. Her voice echoed across the lot, cutting through the screams, and the metallic clang of the clowns continued to destroy. But it was too late. Sherry went limp, her last breath a choked whisper. Lizzo felt the shift, the fear, the dread, the shock. It all echoed into a molten core of pure, unadulterated rage. Julie, thank you so much. This was not a random act of violence. This was an invasion. These psychopaths had dared to desecrate her kingdom, to spill blood of her people under her very nose. And that, dear friends, was the line Lizzo simply would not tolerate. She slowly, deliberately slid off of the hood of the thick express. Her custom-studded fanny pack seemed to hum with menace. Her earrings, usually playful hoops, now looked like miniature brass knuckles. She walked toward the clowns, her gait purposeful, a predator scenting blood. Snickers turned, his gaze narrowed. Ah, the queen approaches. Come to beg for mercy, perhaps, or join our little show. Lizzo stopped a few feet from him, her chest heaving, not with fear, but with the immense power building within her. Mercy, she scoffed, a dark laugh rumbling up from her diaphragm. Honey, the only thing you're going to get from me is an express trip to the ER, where you're going to be needing to pick glitter out of all your orifices for a week. She reached into her fanny pack not for a weapon, but for a blasting custom Bluetooth speaker. With a flick of her thumb, it blared to life, and the opening bars of Truth Hurts tore through the night. The anthem against the horror. Feel the bass, bitches, she bellowed as the ground seemed to vibrate. Giggles, momentarily disoriented by the sudden sonic assault, stumbled. Lizzo did not hesitate. She moved with a speed that bellied her size, a blur of sequence and righteous fury. She launched herself at Giggles, not with a delicate push, but with the full force of her ample frame, a human bowling ball. Giggles went flying, crashing into a stack of empty pallets, a symphony of splintering wood and pained yelps. Chuckles, the brute, raised his massive hammer, a silent, deadly threat, but Lizzo had danced with bigger, dumber men than him. She ducked under his swing, her hand shooting out, not for his legs, but for his oversized floral lapel. With a mighty yank, she pulled him off balance, then spun using his own momentum against him. Chuckles, top heavy in surprise, stumbled and fell, his massive body hitting the asphalt with the force of a small earthquake. Before he could recover, Lizzo brought down her custom rhinestone encrusted work boot, size 11, wide, steel toe, square right in his nuts. He wheezed briefly. The air was completely knocked out of him. You like to knock the wind out of people, huh? Lizzo snarled, pressing down harder. How do you like these scrunched things? Snickers, the leader, finally entered the fray, his eyes gleaming with a manic joy. He produced a glinting switchblade from his sleeve, flicking it open with a flourish. Well, well, the queen has some fight in her. A shame it'll be her last. He lunged, quick and agile, aiming for her gut. But Lizzo had seen every dirty trick in the book and then some. Hell, she even made a few. She met his attack not with a block, but with a sidestep, grabbed his arm as sailing past. With a powerful twist, she bent his wrist back until he howled, dropping that knife with a clatter. You think a little shiv is going to scare me? Lizzo scoffed, her grip like a vice. Honey, I've had more drama on this than a Tuesday night. You disrespected my kingdom. You killed my people. Rock and steady. Thank you, brother. She didn't just twist his arm. She used it as a lever. With a primal roar, Lizzo spun him around, lifted him clean off the ground with a surprising powerful heave, and then slammed him head first into the side of Thick Express, leaving a clown-shaped dent in her pristine pearl paint. He slid down dazed, a dark smear on his white makeup. Giggles, meanwhile, had recovered and was scrambling to get to his feet, pulling a string of razor-sharp juggling pins out of his pocket. Lizzo didn't even look. She grabbed a stray hubcap, still shiny from a recent wash, and hurled it with surprising accuracy. It spun like a deadly frisbee, catching Giggles precisely in his face. He cried out, losing a few teeth and collapsing again, disoriented. Lizzo turned back to Snickers, who was slowly pushing himself up, blood trickling from his nose, his painted smile now a grotesque grimace of pain. Now about that smacketh down part, Lizzo said, her voice dangerously calm, the bass from the speaker still pounding, a soundtrack to her fury. She seized Snickers by his greasy clown wig, pulling him upright. You think you're scary? You think you're powerful? You think you can walk into my house and do this? She didn't punch him. She didn't kick him. Lizzo, the lot lizard queen of the truck stop prostitutes, delivered a series of rapid open hand slaps that echoed across the truck stop, each one radiating pure, unadulterated Truth Hurts energy. Smack for Big Jim. Smack for Lenny. Smack. And for Sherry. You freakish abomination. Snickers' head whipped from side to side with each blow, his porcelain features crackling, his evil eyes losing their spark replaced with genuine terror. Lizzo finished with a final resounding slap that sent him sprawling, his wig askew, revealing greasy, patchy hair. She then went to Chuckles, who was still gasping for air under her boot. And you, she growled, you think you're tough? You think you can just smash my people because you got a big mallet? She yanked him up by his collar, snatched his novelty hammer, and with a grunt that could shame a grizzly bear, shattered it over her knee. Now, you ain't got squat but a headache and a future in physical of discarded tires. Lizzo stood over the three groaning clowns. Her chest heaved, her sequins shimmering in the ambient light. Her hair was a little disheveled, but her fury remained intact. She grabbed Giggles by what was left of his checkered suit, dragged him to his comrades, and then, with a final disgusted look, delivered a powerful kick that sent the three crumbled figures rolling into a dumpster. And stay out, she shouted, slamming the dumpster lid shut with a final clang. The music from her speakers still blared that triumphant symphony. Silence slowly and tentatively began to reclaim the Lucky Seven. But it was a different kind of quiet now, a reverent, awe-struck quiet. Lizzo surveyed her damaged kingdom. 2 truckers dead, Sherry gone. Her beautiful, thick express dented. The cost had been high. The truckers were scattered. Fear lingered in the air like exhaust fumes, but the clowns were gone. And her reign, her protection, had been reaffirmated. Conscious Wanderer, thank you. Nanfar, thank you. Brenda, cautiously emerging from behind the fuel pump, looked at Lizzo, her face a mixture of horror and profound respect. Queen, she whispered, you just laid the whole damn smacketh down. Lizzo adjusted her beehive, pulling a stray sequence from her lip. She sighed. Her exhaustion finally showed through the adrenaline. Someone had to do it, honey, she said, her voice regaining the familiar swagger, though a little softer now. This ain't no circus. This is my house, and nobody messes with my damn house. She took out her pocket mirror, checked her lipstick, and then, with a determined glint in her eye, began to walk toward Sherry. The queen surveyed her fallen, but now safe kingdom. The night was far from over, but the clowns wouldn't be bothering anybody at the Lucky Seven again. Not on Lizzo's watch. Not ever. Smitty! Thank you guys. Thank you. I cannot thank you guys enough. Thank you so much. Shauna, how are you? Wesley, September, Nikola Tesla, SDL. I think I said hi to all of you, but if I didn't, what's the chance of getting out of a dumb alive? Slim to none. Thank you, Conscious Wanderer. Snowman Dave. Oh man, you're gonna love one of the stories tonight, Snowman. So stay tuned for another Lizzo. Nanford, thank you so much. Samara Osborne, how are you? Claire, how are you? And thank you. And there's Sonny, the Wandering Gypsy. Thank you, Brian Mons. Thank you. I think that one was like, I don't know, a little different than the other ones, than the regular. Not like funny, but I think it was pretty good. I think it was damn good. Aramic, we missed you last week. That's it. We just missed the hell out of you last week, brother. So I was around 14 years old when this took place. We had just moved to my grandmother's neighborhood like 3 weeks prior. I was extremely familiar with this place as I had visited them every weekend. Down the road a bit was a small pond that was in the middle of the next neighborhood over. I would regularly go down there to fish as my dad's friend owned the property on the pond. He had a very nice house with a little gazebo that protruded out into the water a little bit. He lived right near a small dam at the end of the lake. The dam was about 8 feet high, and on the side of it that wasn't facing the lake, there was a 50-foot concrete slope that went into the woods below. It was a Friday night in January, and me being an avid fisherman I was getting ready for a trip down there the next morning. I went to bed kind of early with my dog and my fishing buddy Angel. She's a Jack Russell Rat Terrier mix. I'd had her since I was 6 years old, man's best friend for sure. Once we got into bed, I couldn't sleep for some reason. I just tossed and turned. I finally dozed off for about an hour, but woke up for no apparent reason, couldn't fall back to sleep. I looked at my phone and it was about 1:30 a.m. And after a short thought, I decided just to go down to the pond and start fishing. I grabbed my pole, tackle box, my thermos, and Angel's leash. You may think I'm crazy for going fishing in 20-degree weather, but I was really big into fishing. Besides, I was having good luck down there recently. So I had to go push my luck. It was a short walk to the little pond slash lake, but I had to walk around it to the far side where I fished, which was about a half a mile or so. It was really foggy that night. I could see pretty well still, but it was almost a full moon as well. It was extremely quiet too. Usually, the road I was walking on is pretty busy at all hours. It was cold, so I don't think anyone was out. I made it to my dad's buddy's house. We walked to the gazebo. I set my things down and took a drink of the hot cocoa before I started to get my line ready for the water. Angel found a small place in between the wooden benches to lie down. This next, but may seem unimportant, bear with me. Once I got my fishing pole rigged up, I cast it out, sat down to wait for a bite. My fishing reel has a setting where if a fish rugs on the line, it makes a very loud clicking noise to let you know that you have a bite. That's the setting I put it into. I sit down, take a look around. It was about 2:30 at this point. I look over to the left at the houses. I look to the right toward the dam, which was about 40 feet from where I was sitting. Still very quiet, and I continued to look around the area, just taking in the moonlit water. Then suddenly I see something out of the corner of my eye to the right, there by the dam. I see a white blob walking on all fours, looking as if something is smelling the ground. It looked like a white dog from where I was, and I did not want Angel to see it, so I picked up her leash and kept an eye on this thing. At this point, I still thought it was a dog, and I wasn't scared in the least bit. But then, as it made its way to the wall of the dam, it stood on its hind legs. Then I realized this was not a dog. I crouched down beside the wooden bench where Angel was lying, grabbed her up, and faced her away from the creature. The thing did not see me, and I was going to do my damnedest to make sure it didn't. I instinctively watched it as it looked around the area, and then proceeded to jump up onto the 8-foot tall dam effortlessly, almost as if it floated. Then it did something really strange. Its pale white fur seemed to glow almost like a firefly. I could see the bluish colors in its legs and calf muscles, and this thoroughly freaked me out. Then it turned around to where I could see its face. It was about 3.5 feet tall, had a short torso, long skinny legs and arms, a wide head, almost oval shaped, large ears, large mouth with many small teeth, huge eyes that were a yellowish orange in color. On top of that, it seemed to be glowing. I was nearly hyperventilating, trying to control my breathing, hoping that it wouldn't hear me. Angel was now aware of its presence, and the hair on her neck stood up as she started to growl and struggle to get out of my arms. I kept watching it, terrified to move. I didn't do anything when it got to the top of the dam. It just squatted down and looked as though it was examining something. After a few minutes of watching it, I had worked up the idea to just back the way I came, and once I got to the road, just run as fast as I could. Angel was growing increasingly aggressive and trying to see this creature, but I kept her buried in my big winter jacket the best I could. I decided just to leave my stuff and come back the next day. I slowly stood up, and just as I did, and I was about to start walking away from the gazebo, my fishing pole started making that zig noise. Of all times, now I got a fish bite. My attention went straight back to the creature, which was now frantically looking around for the source of the noise. In my panic, I forgot to keep Angel covered, and she saw the creature for the first time. She started barking like I had never heard her bark before, as if she was in terror or something, and that scared me. The creature then saw us. It bent down as if it were about to start running towards us. I tried to take a step back and start running, but I slid on a cold, hard ground. I landed on my side and looked at the creature. Thankfully, it hadn't started to chase us, but it did let out the most disturbing scream I had ever heard. It sounded like a woman screaming, but backwards, if that makes sense. It then jumped from the dam into the woods about 100 feet away and faded as it landed. I was in tears now. My fight or flight kicked in. I grabbed my dog and ran as fast as I could all the way to the front door of my house, too afraid to look back and see if it was behind me. I got home and I don't remember what happened till the next day. I must have just passed out or something. I remember it seemed like a dream. The next day, I went to get my gear from the gazebo, and yeah, it was still there. I did not go back to the pond even during the day for a few years. I told my mom and dad the story some months later, and while they did believe me, I still wonder what this creature was. Kathy's daughter's friends in our prayers. I read it right, JD. I think it's funny that it's Kathy's daughter's friends. Jigger! Thank you, brother. No, I've not been to the LBL. I think the LBL is super played out and talked about. Dogmen are everywhere. It had maybe one attack, maybe one. Tim Coonbo Baker knows about it. I've interviewed him. I think that happened in like '84. I've got a picture of it, of the a real picture of the tow behind trailer that I shared on the channel a while ago with the interview of Tim. But I don't think it's dogmen are everywhere. I think the LBL is just really played out. I'd much rather go to New Mexico than to the LBL. Thank you, Jager. Appreciate you, brother. Arabic! You guys are blessing me completely tonight. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. No, but I mean, Conscious, send me it right now. If you have it saved in your email, you shouldn't have to retype it out. Just copy, paste it, and send it to me during the live stream and tell me that you sent it so I can check. That would probably be the best way to do it, my friend. I mean, I've had really crazy experiences where Tom Mezek disappeared. I don't need to go to anywhere like the LBL. I mean, yeah, it's famous. It's famous. I granted, but you know, there's other places that are much scarier. Colorado, Definitely New Mexico. Definitely New Mexico. If I had to go anywhere to have a paranormal or supernatural experience, that would be the place I would go. Nothing from Scotland in a long time, my friend. How are you doing? I'm doing well, Zilla. How about you? Zilla, thank you. Carrie Miller, thank you. I could go to Rockin' Steady's mother's house and have a paranormal experience. Yes, absolutely. Or just, like just the regular Appalachia, West Virginia, Appalachia region. I mean, shit, you walk into that place and it's like scary. Definitely superstitious mountains. There's that one story about the superstitious mountains that just scares the living bejesus out of me. How are they? Oh my God, Aramik. I had to stop on that one. That's all you can do, brother. That's all you can do. Not in some time. Not in some time. Haven't spoken to Dark Waters in a while. He's doing his own thing, and I'm doing mine. We're still good friends. He congratulated me on my 100,000 subscribers. He popped in the live stream sometimes. He's my one person, the one friend that has a YouTube channel that I really have a lot of respect for. Mr. Shackleneck, you dog, you. How are you, brother? All right, I got a good one for you guys right now. It was 2011. Back then, I was very engaged in political activism and ended up organizing an Occupy movement in the city I was living in. Oh boy. Along with some other fellows, I'd rather not give any names or locations. We camped in downtown square for about 4 months. Throughout this period, a lot of people came in and out, and by the second month, I had to travel to another city where my parents were living for a week. When I came back to the occupation, there was a guy living there that arrived exactly when I left. He somehow already had some respect from the other people in that very short period of time. He was tall, blonde, long-haired, a bit of a hippie, had a profound voice that amplified self-confidence. He had, by some means, a strange aura, but okay, no big deal, seemed like a cool guy after a while. With time, he became my friend, and we ended up having long conversations about pretty much everything that interested me, and vice versa, like occultism, magic, UFOs, etc., until he brought up vampirism, which I was not familiar with at the time. He explained to me that vampires were actually normal people that could manage their own life force, and apparently they have been misinterpreted since always. And he told me that there are some secret vampire groups, small ones that preserved the rituals. There was no blood sucking thing going on, as he said that the blood was an analogy of life force. They were not actually sucking it from people, but they could indeed suck somebody's life force. But more important, he said, was to know how to use your own. The conversation finished there. The whole thing seemed interesting to me. And after a while, I went to sleep. Some days later, here's what happened. My house was quite close to the occupation, and once in a while, some of my friends would often ask me to use my bathroom to have a shower. And then this guy asked me the same. I said, yeah, no problem at all. Everything went fine. The guy had his shower, and when we were walking back to the occupation, he brought up the subject of vampirism again. This time, he was wearing an he was wearing an anonymous plastic mask, which completely covered his face. He starts to explain to me how he can control his own life force inside of dreams and how that would affect the actual material body. Meanwhile, he is explaining that to me. I saw his jaw making a strange movement, as if there was something stuck between his teeth, and he was trying to clean it. When he finishes the explanation, he calls me by name and rises the mask slightly so I can look at his mouth. And then I saw huge canine like teeth. He pulls down his mask. I did not know how to react, so I just remained calm and asked him what was that for if they didn't actually suck blood from people. And he told me that it worked out as sort of an antenna to capture different vibrations. And he managed to construct it by molding his life force into the shape inside his dreams. And he asked me if I would be interested to do the same. I told him that it sounded interesting, and he just let me think about it. We arrived back at the occupation as if nothing happened. I didn't see any strange movements by his hands trying to insert fake teeth into his mouth or even trying to remove them. The sensation I got was that he pulled the tooth out of his jaw movement. The whole thing was very strange to digest. I didn't know what to do, so I called a friend, and he just said the whole story sounded crazy to believe. We still lived together in the occupation for a while, but I never brought up the subject again. The guy totally noticed my attempt to avoid it, so he didn't push me either. There was another strange fact after a while. Once, he was shirtless and crunched organized stuff inside his tent, and his muscles on his back formed the shape of a winged dragon. It was incredibly similar. Another girl that was at the occasion witnessed it and freaked out a bit. The occupation eventually finished, and the guy ended up dating a girl that he met there, and they both had a kid. The guy seemed pretty normal despite those two strange occasions. Well, I mean, when I share anything about vampires, I always say they are inorganic beings. So I truly believe that they are definitely life suckers. I I don't know. I don't have any rivalry with anyone. I don't talk to anybody. I just do my own research. I think that's the reason why is people try to outbest each other. So I think the best way to do your research is to share it and to accept. That's the biggest problem is people are not willing to or respect and listen to other people's theories. Um, I I've been researching this for 30 years, all of it from paranormal to cryptids, and I think I don't think I've ever had like a argument or whatever with anybody that I started. I've had people come at me, but I don't know. I think it's just people don't respect other people's theories and think their theories are right. The way I look at it is it's a puzzle. It's all a puzzle. And like somebody's theory, I'm not going to toss it out. I'll keep it and put it somewhere, and then maybe later down the road it'll work. I've always said that. Jane, who's been my longest subscriber, can attest to that. I think it's just ego, and there's no room for ego. It's a pseudoscience with no experts. So how can you have an ego if there's no fucking experts? It's like a dick measuring contest with people with no dicks. It's a stupid thing. Like if there was one person that I would think if I had to ever classify anyone as an expert, it would be Tim Baker. And you know, he doesn't even consider himself an expert. And the only reason why I would classify him as an expert is because of the amount of research he's put into all of his work throughout the 60 years of doing it. It's just, I don't know. It's ego, and there shouldn't be any egos. I got a Dogman experience for you guys. And then I found something really cool that I want to share with you guys. That's pretty interesting. It was September of 2021. I was on a camping trip in Oregon. I was about an hour away from Calumet Falls, which ironically and infamously also seems to be a hotspot for cryptid sightings, especially Dogman. Though I wouldn't discover this till much later. My encounter took place just off of the Lake of the Woods area on an Aspen Point campground side. The Lake of the Woods was in walking distance from me, no more than a few miles. To get to the lake from camp, however, it required that I cut through a small clearing and then walk through a patch of forest. During the day, the lake is beautiful. Every day for 4 days I was there, I spent as much time as I could sitting near the lake. It was peaceful. Strange things first occurred on the third day. I'd just come back from the camp after going out with family. I marched to the lake where I spent the next few hours, hung around until the weather grew crappy and the sun began to set. I let it almost get dark before I realized that I was in an isolated location with a walk through a rural forest ahead of me. If you've been in a similar position, you know I'm trying to collect myself while also internally panicking. As daylight is burning, I began to walk. The forest was thick, however, I managed to keep my cool. The clearing was within sight. That's when the most awful feeling came over me. And many of you may know the feeling when you can physically feel someone's eyes staring on the back of your neck. Only my someone felt more like a something. I remained frozen like a deer in headlights, sick to my stomach. Up until a few yards behind me, I had heard several fallen branches crack simultaneously. I turned my head and peered into the dim woods. Nothing was there. Suspecting I'd just experienced a bad omen, panic ensued. I chose flight and raced back to camp with limited vision. Then came the fourth and final night of camp. I found myself rolling around, unable to sleep. In the dead of night, I got up, threw on some warmer clothes, unzipped my tent, and left. What was supposed to be a short bathroom break quickly turned into a late night solo walk back to the lake of the woods. That particular night, a full harvest moon lit my path. It shone just well enough for me to make out my surroundings, even with the brightness of the moon. I headed for the lake with no flashlight in hand. I walked in the night defiantly, and previous day still heavy on my mind. No forest monster was going to get its hands on me, I told myself. Madman on a mission, inviting the supernatural, inevitably reached the lake and sat down on the dock. I watched as the moonlight glistened on the water, dancing in short ripples. However, I began to notice an eerie fog roll over the lake. While looking out onto the water, something came over me. I realized something was off. I now diverted my attention back to the trees. A sound of the forest had gone abruptly silent, as if the presence of a predator, and before I knew it, a dreadful feeling came rushing in. My stomach dropped. I shined my flashlight into the darkness and heard more tree branches breaking, as if something was headed towards me. Instinctively, I stopped listening to the water and started to move. I wanted to navigate whatever was happening like one would walk on eggshells, but I ran. With no flashlight on hand, I booked it off the docks back into the forest. I ran clumsily, stumbling over roots, ultimately falling, and as I fell, I saw a black silhouette gunning for me. I got up and full sprinted with only the moonlight to guide me. Something was hot on my heels. Terrified, I managed to just reach the clearing and turn back away from the woods, and that's when I saw it. It stood on its hind legs watching me from the tree line. It had to have been 8 feet tall, covered in matted jet black fur. Humanoid with the head of a dog. It had lanky limbs, beady eyes, and a malnourished body. And for about 5 seconds, it watched me. I stood paralyzed for what felt like a lifetime. I watched as it reverted to all fours and ran back into the forest. To say it was fast would be an understatement. It was the quickest thing I had ever seen. I truly believe it would have caught me that night if it wanted to. As a native of the Pacific Northwest, you hear a lot of strange tales regarding the woods and ocean here. I grew up with the myth and stories of dreadful black eyed children, colossal sea monsters resembling prehistoric plesiosaur, Native American thunderbirds, of course, Sasquatch, aka Bigfoot, the staple cryptid of Oregon, and a long-time selling point, Bigfoot, so prominent here it makes you question how many have seen it. I, however, have only encountered a different kind of creature, a cryptid unlike anything I had heard of until that fateful night I met it, the Dogman. Maggie Mayhem, how are you? APC service 59th. What's up, brother? My dad's told me some of the stuff when he was younger, um, about Vietnam, the things that he saw. But he saw the majority of the things that he saw was when he was in Laos, when they were in the river areas in there. I don't know. I've heard that too, Matt, about Dogman having infrasound, but I don't know if I buy into it. I've heard it more on Bigfoot. I mean, I've heard it very seldom on Dogmen. Um, I think they if they do, I mean, they probably do, but I mean, they're able to use portals, so they'd have to open the portal somehow. So yeah, but I don't think they use it like a Bigfoot would. But then again, I don't know if Bigfoot use it as weapons either. I think when people get hit with the infrasound, it's more or less them trying to get away from the predicament that they are in at that point. You know what I mean? Neutrino waves. How are you, my friend? But my dad did see some weird shit. The weirdest things that he seen was on base when they were in Germany, but he doesn't really talk about the Vietnam era too much. He was 18 years old and dropped in the middle of a third world country with 9 other guys on a boat going up and down rivers through Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. Yeah, I'm not really familiar with him. I don't know. I mean, I know who he is, but yeah, I'm not. I do my own research. I don't listen to what other people say or do. And I really don't. Like that's the one thing I don't really. That's another reason why I don't talk to other people in this community, is because I don't think collecting money at speaking events is a cool thing to do when you guys know just as much information as I know. You know, like I learned shit from you guys, you learn shit from me. Just because I have a YouTube channel that has 100,000 subscribers doesn't make me any better than anybody. Doesn't make me a better researcher. Doesn't make me know more than any of you guys. I can tell you, if I have a conversation with Aramek, I learn a shit ton from him anytime I talk with him. Anytime I talk to anybody, I learn something new. So, it's just, I don't know. I can't see the fact of talking like I'm an expert in front of a panel and having a bunch of people fall for it. My book is just encounters. My book is not my theories. And me and Jimmy are working on it, Mr. Haunted. So there's a difference between that. I would never charge people for a book of theories. Thank you, SDL. I appreciate that. My dad did say he saw one weird thing my dad said that always sticks in my head. Is he saw UFOs. They saw a lot of like weird shit in the sky when they were in the rivers. And they saw some weird, like, I don't know. He said he saw weird shit in the woods or in the jungle, but he didn't really elaborate on it. He said they opened up onto the forest a few times, but he said the majority of the time at night, they saw a lot of unidentified flying objects, and they saw a lot of weird aquatic, like snakes that were too big to be snakes, fish that didn't look like regular fish, like prehistoric fish and shit like that, which classifies as a cryptid because a cryptid is just an animal that has not been identified or discovered by science yet. So absolutely 59th. Rockin' steady. It was wonderful having you. Thank you for popping in. It's always nice to see you, my friend. It is always nice to see you. Let me put my I'll put my email in quick. Oh, Rockin' Steady put my email in for me. I don't type very fast. I know someone was going to send me an email. I want to check and see if they sent it. Let me check while we're here. If anyone sent me an email while we were on the live so far, I have not gotten one. SPCs is a creepypasta, Wesley. It's a creepypasta, my friend. Outside in. What's up, my friend? Is it time? It's time. It's been an hour. Do you guys want another Lizzo story? You didn't. Yeah, SPCs are written by people, Wesley. We got 5 people. Who was the one that said Elvis? I forgot who said Elvis. Someone said something about Elvis, and I told them to stay. Because I've got one with Elvis in it tonight for you. No, I believe you. I believe you. You know, here's something though. I've done Dogman stories, Matt. I've done a few already. Here's something, Wesley. I believe that some of the SPC, some of the stories that have been written are about non-fictional events that have happened. Like there's a SPC story that talks about the escape of something. My fucking hair is driving me nuts tonight. Ugh. About an SPC that escaped and there was like a kill team. Stuff like that I do buy into, or like certain artwork that is haunted and stuff like that. But the majority of it, like the thing that fucking turns around and you're dead, that drives me nuts. Give me 1 second. There we go. That's better. All right. Here we go. Snowman Dave was the one that said Elvis. Snowman Dave. There he is. All right, here we go. The air inside the Heartbreak Highway Diner at the notorious Grime and Glory truck stop usually smelled of stale coffee, burnt grease, and the faint scent of dread. But on this particular Tuesday night, beneath the flickering fluorescent light, something was different. A subtle hum vibrated through the linoleum, making the condiment caddies dance and jiggle. At the largest booth, in a sequenced denim jacket and a crown of meticulously braided hair adorned with tiny shimmering truck stop trinkets, sat Lizzo, queen of the lot lizards, sovereign of the asphalt, and unchallenged empress of every trucker's fantasy. Beside her, polishing his oil-stained trucker hat with the reverence usually reserved for religious artifacts, was Earl. Earl, her boy toy, her beefcake, her gentle giant, with a heart as big as an 18-wheeler and the mind as simple as a flat tire. Earl, baby, Lizzo purred, spearing a pickle with a nail as long and sharp as a shiv. You ain't saying much tonight. Something gnawing at you, love? Earl mumbled. Just a weird feeling, Queen, like chill up my spine, and ain't from the draft. He glanced nervously towards the swinging kitchen door, behind which lay the diner's rarely used service entrance. Beyond that, a forgotten, overgrown patch of weeds bordering the desolate back lot. Lizzo merely chuckled, a rich, powerful sound that made the coffee in the mugs tremble. Probably just a chili cheese dog you inhaled, sugar. Don't you worry your pretty little head. She surveyed her domain, a motley crew of truckers, fellow road angels, and a few bewildered tourists who'd taken a wrong turn on the interstate. They all loved Lizzo, respected her, and knew better to cross her. She was their compass, their confidant, their fierce protector. Suddenly, a hum intensified, the lights flickered violently, plunging the diner into near darkness before surging back brighter and harsher than before. An iridescent shimmer pulsed from beyond that kitchen door, accompanied by a sound like 1,000 record needles scratching the forgotten vinyl, interspersed with the faint, ghostly, uh-huh. The kitchen door burst open, not from a physical force, but seemingly from the sheer pressure of whatever was behind it. A swirling vortex of neon purples and greens materialized. Crackling with an unworldly energy, every single person in the diner froze, forks halfway to mouths and eyes wide. From the shimmering maw of a portal stepped a figure that sent a collective gasp through the room. He was unmistakably tall, impossibly lean, with a pristine white jumpsuit, a gravity-defying pompadour, and a sneer that oozed effortless cool. It was Elvis Presley, the king, but not as he was in life. This Elvis glowed with an eerie, phosphorescent light, his eyes burning with an ancient hungry fire from the netherworld. He took one dramatic stride, then paused. His spectral gaze swept the room before locking on to Lizzo. Well, bless my soul, he drawled, his voice an ethereal echo of the former glory. Looks like heaven sent me an angel, or maybe the whole damn gospel choir. Before anyone could process this, a second figure glided out of the portal, smoother and enigmatic. He wore a shimmering military-style jacket, a sequenced glove, and a fedora tilted just so. His skin so pale, his eyes wide and dark, with a faint hee hee escaped his lips as he struck a theatrical pose. It was Michael Jackson, the king of pop, equally spectral, equally otherworldly, radiating a silent charged energy. Michael took in the scene, his gaze also falling onto his queen Lizzo. A slow, predatory smile spread across his translucent face. Shaman, he whispered, his voice a breathy, ghostly murmur. The rhythm, it calls to me, but she is the melody. The two kings from the netherworld, bound by some unholy pact, had arrived, and their mission was to claim Lizzo, their queen, as their own. Lizzo, for her part, slowly raised an eyebrow, unfazed. Well, looky here, she drawled, her voice dripping with amusement. We got ourselves a couple of roadshow wannabes. Ain't you boys a little late for the talent show? Elvis chuckled, a dry, rattling sound. Sweetheart, I ain't no talent show, and I reckon you're just the kind of queen a king needs by his side. No, no, Michael interjected, gliding forward with an impossible moonwalk that defied gravity. She needs someone who understands the art of movement, the passion, someone who can make her scream in a good way, of course. He winked, a strange flickering light in his eye. That's when Earl, loyal Earl, finally found his voice. Now hold on, fellas. Lizzo's my queen. You spectral spooks need to back off. He stood up, puffing out his chest, a formidable wall of muscle and love. The kings exchanged a look, a silent conspiratorial agreement passing between the two rock and roll legends and the pop of icon. My, Elvis purred. Looks like we got a little fly on the buttermilk. A distraction, Michael added, a dismissive wave of his sequenced hand. Before Earl could react, Elvis hit him with a burst of ghostly energy that felt like 1,000 tiny needles momentarily paralyzing him. Michael, swift as a shadow, flowed behind Earl, and with an unseen unholy force, pushed Earl, still rigid, tumbling backward through the open portal with a bewildered whoa. The vortex pulsed, then snapped shut, sealing Earl's fate. Lizzo blinked. Where'd my man go? Elvis dusted off his ethereal hands. Don't you fret your pretty little head, Queen. Your companion can't interfere. Let's just say the netherworld has a few unique ways of redecorating certain lower chakras. Michael shivered with a strange delight. Oh, the sounds he'll make, he whispered, a ghostly giggle escaped. The revelations. Lizzo's eyes narrowed, her easy amusement evaporated, replaced with a dangerous glint. You took my Earl, her voice low, menacing. And you're going to do weird stuff to his chakras? The kings, oblivious to the storm brewing, began wooing. Elvis, with a practiced swivel of his hips, launched into an a cappella spectral rendition of Can't Help But Fall in Love, complete with shimmering guitar riffs that weren't there. Michael, not to be outdone, moonwalked circles around the booth, singing a breathy, ghostly Billie Jean, his disembodied fingers snapping to an unheard beat. Queen Lizzo, Elvis crooned, bending his ghostly knee. Come with me, and we'll rule the after parties, the spectral stage. I'll teach you the true meaning of rock and roll. No, my love, Michael contoured, thrusting his pelvis. Join me. We'll float through the constellations, creating cosmic symphony. I'll introduce you to the ultimate groove. They started to argue, their spectral forms flickering. I'm the king, Elvis declared, his pompadour shimmering with indignation. I'm the king of pop, Michael retorted, his sequenced glove flashing. My moves are eternal. Yours are just gyrations. Gyrations that made the world scream, Elvis shot back. Your Thriller ain't got nothing on my jailhouse rock. Oh, please, your fans just fainted, mine danced. While they squabbled, Lizzo's anger simmered, then boiled over. Her Earl, her sweet, simple Earl, was in some interdimensional booty hole peril. And these two flamboyant ghoul bags were auditioning for her affection. That's enough, Lizzo roared. The entire diner, including the kings, recoiled. Her voice was pure thunder, shaking the very foundations of the grime and glory. You two glorified hooligans think you can just waltz in here, snatch my man, and sing me some dusty old ass tunes? She stood up, pulling herself to her full, magnificent height. Her sequence shimmered, reflecting a harsh diner lights like a battlefield general armor. You done messed with the wrong queen, boys. Elvis, still arrogant, attempted a ghostly snarl. Now hold on, sugar. Little respect for the king. Lizzo did not wait. With a move that would make any wrestling champion proud, she grabbed full, steaming pot of coffee from the counter and heaved it at Elvis. The hot liquid, instead of passing through him, sizzled on his spectral form, making him shriek. Hot dang, it burns, Elvis cried, his ghostly jumpsuit smoking faintly. Michael, trying to capitalize, floated forward with a taunt. Foolish mortal, you can't harm a king. Lizzo, however, had other plans. She ripped a heavy-duty frying pan off the hook, the kind used to cook 1,000 greasy breakfasts. She swung it with the force of a battering ram, and everyone's astonishment, it connected with Michael Jackson's head. With a resounding clang, the king of pop staggered backward, his fedora spinning off his head like a spectral frisbee. A dazed "Hee-ho" escaped his lips. It turned out, when angry enough, or when their desire to interact with the physical world was strong enough, these kings could be tangible. And Lizzo was radiating enough raw fury to solidify the whole damn spectral army. Nobody, Lizzo declared, advancing on the two bewildered kings. And I mean nobody messes with Earl's booty hole but me. And usually only after a good date and a few too many Coors Lights. She grabbed Elvis by his smoking lapels, pulling the glowing face closer. Now you listen here, rhinestone zombie. You tell me where Earl is, or I'm going to send you back to the nether world in a glitter-covered body bag. Elvis, surprisingly intimidated by Lizzo's sheer force of personality and the lingering coffee burn, stammered. The portal, it leads to the backstage dimension. He's rehearsed. Rehearsed for what? Lizzo snarled, shaking him. For the ultimate dance-off. For the ultimate dance-off, Michael whimpered, clutching his head. They're trying to give him a rhythm, the funk. Lizzo released Elvis, who crumpled to the floor in the shimmering heat. She stomped towards the spot where the portal had opened. A faint shimmering was still there, a residual outline. Open it, she commanded. Open it now. The two humiliated kings, beaten pan and an iron will, reluctantly focused their remaining energy. The iridescent swirl reappeared smaller and less grand, but unmistakably a gateway. Without hesitation, Lizzo took a deep breath, adjusted her crown, and with a determined bellow of, Earl, Queen Lizzo's coming for you, she charged headfirst into the swirling vortex, disappearing into the unknown. The netherworld was bizarre. She landed with a thump on what felt like a giant pulsating dance floor made of pure energy. Disembodied music notes floated like fireflies. Strange figures in sequenced jumpsuits and white gloves, ghostly backup dancers, she realized, swayed in unison. And in the center, looking utterly terrified, was Earl. He was wearing an ill-fitting, glowing white jumpsuit, being forced to attempt the moonwalk by a chorus line of spectral thriller zombies. And behind him, a ghostly hound dog howled, aimed directly at his posterior, while a translucent, glowing hand seemed to be massaging his lower spine. Lizzo, Earl cried, his voice a desperate squeak. They're trying to make me pop and lock, and the dog won't stop singing to my butt. He, chirped the spectral voice belonging to an unseen entity. His chakras are almost fully aligned with the cosmic groove. Just a little more soulful penetration. Lizzo saw red. Get your ghostly hands off my man, you interdimensional perverts. She grabbed a stray, oversized microphone stand that floated nearby and started swinging it like a battle axe. The spectral dancers squeaked and dissolved as she plowed through them. She kicked at that ghostly hound dog, sending it yelping into the ether. The unseen entities of the netherworld who had been content for the tormented Earl with their strange spiritual butt stuff and forced choreography realized they had made a grave error. This woman was not to be messed with. She was a force of nature, a hurricane in sequence. She reached Earl, scooped him up into a protective embrace, and glared at the rapidly retreating spectral tormentors. You hear me, Netherworld? You mess with the Queen Lizzo's man, you get the pain train. Without waiting for a response, she dragged Earl back across the pulsating dance floor, found the shimmering entrance, and burst back into the Grime and Glory diner. Earl still clinging to her, traumatized but safe. The diner was silent. Elvis and Michael, still recovering, lie on the floor in shimmering heaps. Lizzo plopped Earl back into their booth, then grabbed a half-eaten hamburger from a stunned trucker's plate and shoved it into Earl's trembling hands. Eat, baby, she commanded, her voice still rough with adrenaline. You earned it. She then turned to the two kings, who slowly began to realize. All right, you two, Lizzo said, her voice dangerously calm. You got 5 seconds to get back to wherever spectral purgatory you crawled out of, or I'm going to give you a taste of my suspicious minds. And trust me, it involves a lot of glitter and a very unhappy mop. Elvis gulped, his spectral throat bobbing. Michael's eyes widened. They knew when they were beaten and not wanted. With a final shared whimper, they dissolved into wisps of shimmering light and vanished back through the still flickering portal, which winked out of existence behind them. Lizzo sighed, wiping her hands on her jacket. Honestly, she muttered, you can't take Earl anywhere without some undead celebrity trying to spiritually grope him. The diner erupted into cheers and laughter. Her subjects rushed forward, offering her fresh coffee, napkins, and awestruck praise. Lizzo, the lot lizard queen of the truck stop prostitutes, had saved the day once again, as she always does. Earl, still munching on that cheeseburger, still looked a little pale and occasionally shivered, muttering about spectral butt tickles. But he was safe. Lizzo just smiled, adjusted her crown. Her reign over the Grime and Glory truck stop was secure, and her love for Earl reaffirmed. And the kings of rock and pop had learned a valuable lesson. When it came to Queen Lizzo and her man, they were definitely not in charge. And sometimes, even in the neither world, a trucker's booty hole was just off limits. What's up, Tyler 420? Thank you, Smitty. I don't know. That one was good. I thought that one was my favorite. That was one of my favorites. Let me check my email real quick. Oh, yeah, that's interesting. That's pretty cool, David. Thank you, 5 rings. Give Earl a fifth of liquor. His booty hole is probably big. It's like that big. It always gets touched. I know you are, Wiley. I know you are. That's really good. That's really good, Dave. Did you make that? I don't know. I thought that was probably one of my best ones. Not tapping my own shoulder, but tapping my own shoulder. Nana Bear, how are you? Uh, Thank you, Aramic. I appreciate your. The next one's just as good. The next one's just as good. What's up, Zilla? I got yours. I got yours, Conscious Wanderer. Email your conscious. I did. I just got yours, Conscious. I think we all need a friend like her, Eric. We all definitely do. I think I had one of those dreams last night about Lizzo. I woke up a little restless. I was like, this is some weird shit that I found. I this is weird, and I I like to share stuff like scientific cryptozoology stuff with you guys. So cryptozoology is a study of unknown animals along with plants that have not been accepted by science or exist or be real in some cases. Cryptozoologists researched accounts involving large carnivorous plants consuming animals and even human beings. What would one do if encountered a tree starving for human blood, spawned not from nature but by supernatural forces? In Japan, legends warn of such vampiric plant called the Jubokoo. Japanese folklore labeled demons, monsters, spirits, and other malevolent forces as yokeia. A few of these supernatural entities resulted in human, animal, or even household transformation after experiencing some traumatic or violent event. Not surprising to discover legends about plants manifesting to feed upon humans like the Jubacoa. In myth, this creature was once a tree within a battlefield whose roots absorbed vast amounts of blood soaked into the soil from dead warriors, giving birth to a monster. Jubacoa appears as another ordinary tree in the forest waiting for an unsuspecting victim. Only a few observant may be warned to the usual jagged branches or several bones poking through the roots. Many fail to notice these features and fall victim to the tree once close enough. The branches would grab the prey and hoist them to the center of the tree. The victim would have their veins and arteries stabbed by the branches as the Jubacoa sucks out its blood. The corpse would either remain hanging or lowered to the ground for the animals and other scavengers to feed on it till the bones littered around the roots. Often, Jubacoas thirst for human blood, but will consume large animals when people are not around. Many Japanese legends will refer to ways of defeating them. Jubacoa may be a demon, but it still has the same vulnerabilities of a plant. Some stories told of chopping the tree down while fighting off its branches or setting fire to it until ashes remain. Just to note, myths mention a Jubacoa branch can heal wounds and cure ailments. That's an actual Japanese folklore. Really freaking cool. Aramec, bless you, my brother. Bless you. There we go. I got a black eyed person experience that I want to share with you guys. I gotta find it. Here it is. Decades ago, I was ending a relationship with a guy we'll just call X when this happened. First, some background. This happened when I was in my late 20s. I would say I was somewhat a spiritual seeker and interested in Eastern spirituality and some New Age subjects, but not very deeply. He was into stuff I didn't really give credence to: Martian apparitions, aliens, and channeling, and more fringy New Age stuff of the 90s. He was also very secretive and had a sex addiction issue, which he said ended his last relationship. He compulsively hooked up with hookers, and I found out later he was extremely violent with them, something he was actually proud of. I think that's related to the phenomena I'll describe here. He was also a compulsive liar. I'm sure there is a lot about him that I did not know. I had reached the point of ending the relationship after about a year of his crazy making behavior, but he said he just wanted to show me something about himself first. I got the feeling he thought this was going to wow me enough to change my mind. There was a real ego vibe as he said it. I felt sorry for him and thought I'd indulge his request. Can't do any harm, and you will know then that nothing would have changed my mind. I had no idea what his party trick was going to be, but I had no fear at all, just pity and mild curiosity, plus a little impatience. Like, I hope this doesn't take long, as I just wanted to get away from him and into my own space again. He had us both sit on the floor to meditate, or rather, he was going to meditate and I was going to watch. After a minute or so of sitting with his eyes closed, he opened his eyes and looked at me. But his eyes, including his sclera, all of his eye was pitch black, like a bottomless pit of nothingness. Also, just before this, the room suddenly got much colder. I can't recall how long any of this took. I was too in the moment. So, in one sense, it felt like it was all over in an instant. He didn't move, he didn't make a sound. He just stared at me with those black eyes, like that would go on forever if I didn't react. It was absolutely apparent to me somehow that there was something looking at me that was no longer X. He was just not there. This was something that felt ancient, evil, hatred for me and humanity, and had such hatred it wanted to end me and humanity, and yet it couldn't. It had no permission from something more powerful. I didn't think this, I somehow knew it instantaneously. Like it was all rolled into one, the observing and the knowing. This knowing was just given to me somehow. I was the property of, or protected by, or belonged to someone or something else who set the rules that this thing couldn't violate. I felt so grateful and humbled by the sense of this protection. I also knew it extended to humanity as a whole. There was nothing egotistical about it. It was simply the fact that we are someone else's and they love us and value us, whereas this thing represented hate. I have never experienced or conceptualized anything like this before. I could just feel the palpability. It was conscious, timeless, pure hatred, resentment, and evil, but it couldn't move or act in that moment or situation. I finally said to X, whatever he was, okay, okay, that's enough. And as I did, I touched his arm. Now, normally X would have felt fleshy, not very solid. He had a slight build, wasn't very muscular, and had a nervous, twitchy disposition. This time I touched him was different. It felt like I had touched a statue that couldn't be moved. I can't describe it other than that. Like there was no life to his body, it was concrete, and there would have been no way to make a dent in him, let alone move him. It was solid. I have no other words. Soon after, X came back. As he looked away, shut his eyes, and opened them. They were his normal eyes, and his body was normal again. None of the statuesque qualities. I have somewhat I have a somewhat dry, protective mode. So when he asked something like, "So what did you think?" I simply said, "Whatever that thing was, I wouldn't invite it to dinner anytime soon," and did not elaborate. I knew him well enough to know he that didn't accord with what his ego wanted, and frankly, I just wanted to get out of his presence. To this day, he probably thinks he can channel an angel or something. I'd be interested in hearing anyone who's had this type of experience themselves. I know about black-eyed kids, and that the black eyes are described as, or black eyes are described by exorcists as well. I'm interested in how common this is. I do think it's genuine spiritual phenomena, and that humans can open themselves unwittingly to it, and also deliberately. I know many Christians see it as demonic, and I have symphony. Can't talk with that view. It is as reasonable as any other theory when you are dealing with something this bizarre. I am more interested in firsthand experiences than theories, however. Thank you. Demon, demon, demon. The Iceman Confessions, that hits, bro. When you seen him, you knew he was a fucking demon. When he talked about his murders, oh, like he was unapologetically evil. I've only seen a Dogman neutrino and possibly a Bigfoot, but only a Dogman myself. No, my daughters have. My daughters watch that. How do you know he lied about it? Just asking. Because I've never heard that he lied about those. I've never heard that. Like, I'm not doubting it, but you know what I mean? Johnny Ohm! R.I.P. Carrie. Your family knew him? I missed when I was reading, I missed it. How did your family know him? That's fucking crazy. Oh no shit. Wow. So when he was like younger, when he was younger, that's pretty fucking crazy. 'Cause he was crazy then too, though, right? That's pretty cool. I agree with you, Tyler. I agree with you. Like when I had my Dogman experience, I thought I was a badass. I literally did. I was like 17 and like thought I could beat up the world. And then I saw what that night changed my whole perspective on everything. I was just like when and then to hear what my friend Gabe said 30 years later was even scarier. Like to know that two had come around the car and were behind us in the woods before we even got into the car was terrifying. When did he pass? MJ? Black Eyed Kids? Yeah. Yeah, they do. Very seldom they do. Huh. Very seldom that I've heard them. There's one story, there's one account that I have um Wiley. I'm gonna try to elaborate on the story as much as I can. Hang on, I'm gonna look it up right now really quick. Really quick, Jeff. Oh, he passed in September 9th in 2025. Uh, Brain cancer. He had brain cancer. He was old too. The James Rink thing, I still that still has got me messed up bad. I just want to keep sharing more stuff on that. I'll look into that in outside in. I'll look into that. That's interesting. Um, so the Black Eyed Kids experience when this lady moved into her house. She was out in a rural area, um, like a not really a dead end road, but a road with not a lot of houses on it. She had just moved there, and she had three kids, and there was two kids that her one kid had kept seeing, and the kid said that they were from her one son said that they were from the house down the road, and they were very strange. They were really weird, and she could see that they had black eyes that freaked her out. Her two kids had come back to the house. She thought her one son was with them. Anyway, they all ran back to the backyard when they realized the one son wasn't with her brother or with their brother. And they saw the little boy with the two black eyed kids beyond the fence line. They had to go through the house to get out to the fenced in area. And by the time they got to the backyard, the little boy was gone along with the two black eyed kids. So she lost both of her kids. Yeah, James Rank passed away. I did a video on it on Monday, Neutrino. Tyler, text me your story so we can narrate it. Or come on the show. It was Monday's video. No, just one of her kids, Wiley. Just one of the kids. And then as she found out later that there was no kids, that the neighbor, because she had gone down to the neighbor's house. That's what it was. She went down to the neighbor's house to meet the parents, and she couldn't find out who they were or something like that. I know a person can't like write out a whole encounter in the chat. Tyler, why don't you come on the show sometime and share it, buddy? I'd love to have you on. I think one of them was Cynthia. There were two in Arkansas. I think one was, one wasn't. MM Wolf, thank you so much. All right, brother. And if you want to come on sometime, you're more than welcome. I think in Japan, I did a video. Many of you guys may have seen that. The video I did in Japan. In Japan, the government actually created these trucks that they pull out into these fields to protect the cattle from bear attacks. And in the back of these trucks, they have these robotic looking creatures that look like dogmen. They essentially look just like a dogman. They're really interesting. It's really cool. I did not call you a shit worker, San Fran. But and these things actually move around. They'll actually this week sometime, Tyler. That's what we're talking about, Hollow. I might have called you a fecal freak. I may have called you a fecal freak, San Fran. But a shit worker? No. Thank you, Alexis. It's actually really cool looking. They truly look like a dog man. And I did a video like 4 years ago on them because they were having a big issue back then. I agree 100%, Tyler. When I can totally agree with you. When I had my experience, I thought I was, unstoppable. 17, listening to metal all the time, fucking, going to the gym with my friend Martin, and literally like when we all saw what we saw that night, It changed my whole perspective on everything. And then 6 months later, I turned into a drug addict. All right. Time is it? So I've been looking for years for answers or similar experiences, and although many others have heard tappings on their windows, it doesn't seem to be in the same manner as what I experienced. So I'm biting the bullet and I'm asking here myself. Bear with me as I am not the best with explanations. I believe it started around 13 or 14, which was also the beginning of some real tough times for myself, which sometimes I think may be relevant. I'd be lying in bed at no specific time besides it being at night, and there would be three sharp taps on my bedroom window at the foot of my bed. The best way I can describe it is fingernails, and I've been able to roughly recreate it by tapping myself. It's terrifying. I freeze and my blood runs cold. I've never felt such immediate and intense fear in my life. Yes, I was on the first floor. No, there were no trees or bushes or anything of the sort near my window, just a relatively empty backyard. I also had two dogs who stayed inside in the garage, which had a door to the backyard, and I don't feel like they ever reacted. The tapping continued for years, never any specific intervals of time. Nothing I did that I can connect it to. I wouldn't be thinking about it for weeks and it would happen. I would think about it for a week straight, petrified every night, would not make it happen, completely random. I had a friend stay over occasionally and she also heard it once, so I know it was not a hallucination. My mother claimed to hear it when I would sleep on the couch, which behind it was a giant sliding glass door. I've always refused to look because I am just so insanely scared and I don't want to see the thing I imagine it to be. There is a singular incident in which I learned my lesson in interacting with it, probably 16ish. I was feeling especially brave and probably a bit drunk on a night. I came it came to tap, so I tapped back, just on my wall next to me. It began to rapidly tap on my window. I jumped off my bed and I felt like it was following my position across the room. I ran out to get to my parents. My dad went outside to check and saw nothing. I reluctantly had to go back to sleep in the room, but it did not come back that night. Now, one can say it's just an issue with the house or something, except it's followed me to multiple homes I've lived in, say 3 to 5, four being in Japan, and the fifth being in a current super Christian in law's home. And it hasn't happened yet here, but I keep getting this horrible feeling it's coming soon. I haven't heard it since my son was born 2 years ago. I was hoping it moved on. Maybe it won't come, but in the past 3 or 4 days, I've been having nonstop nightmares and just can feel it. It's going to happen soon. Anyway, sorry for the shitty and long explanation. I would expect that it was some kind of weird depression or anxiety induced hallucinations, but as I stated, my mom had heard it once and a friend. Thank you. Yeah, but it's not issues with the house, though. It's if it followed them from house to house to house. Janie's going to bed. Oh, shit. Sonia, how are you? Yeah. You know what's weird? I'm gonna get this. I want you guys to decide this for me, okay? So, Mikey, what's up, buddy? Do me a favor. Send me an email right now with your phone number, Mikey. All right? Can you do that for me? And this week I'll get in touch with you. Please. All right. So I want to ask your guys's view on this, all right? Please. So in a comment I read, it said that, and I'm not debating this. I'm not saying this because I'm debating it. I'm just saying this because it made me feel a certain way. It said that I don't understand or have a relationship with Jesus or God because I'm Roman Catholic and Native American, and Christians don't view Roman Catholics as being Christian. And I'm like, what the fuck? Now, my thinking on this was, and this is from a Christian, my thing was, that's not a very Christian thing to say. One, the Bible is meant to be interpreted how one interprets it, is my view. It was written by a whole bunch of authors under one omnipresent being. And I don't need to be in a classification of a religion to understand or accept the Bible. Like, just like I said in a video or in an upload or a live stream, I view religion as a business. I view spirituality as a sacred bond between me and Jesus and my creator. Two different things. Business, spirituality. I don't need to have a religious affiliation to accept Jesus into my heart and feel reborn, as long as I accept him fully. I could go sit on a log in a freaking forest and have that same kind of appreciation and affection for my creator in Jesus than someone in their best Sunday duds in the Keeping Up with the Joneses. Like that was so weird. Like, and they say they're Christian. I was like, how the fuck, what the, you know? I don't understand people at all. Exactly, Wiley. Exactly. Thank you so much. That's how I was like, I'm like, what in the hell? Like, are you kidding me? Yeah, it's those that say, right on, Papa. It's those who say, I am Christian, that are not the ones that you want to fucking believe or follow. Like, the fuck? You know, they're probably the ones that may go to hell. And the people who, like, don't live that Keeping Up with the Joneses, going to church on every Sunday, looking at their fucking, coveting their neighbor's wife at who's got the better car and putting the bigger money in their little basket. Like, that's not like spirituality. That's just like a fucking game show. Like, I don't agree with any, like religion or whatever, but I always found it interesting that John Smith, I believe John Smith, the founder of the Lutherans from Buffalo, New York, right? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he went into the woods and communed with Jesus and God and had this like epiphany, but he wasn't in some like, constructed place that says this is the home of God. He was in the woods in God's real home. Whatever, Mormon, Lutheran, I don't know. That's why I said I don't know. It's like not a big thing to me. I'm just saying he went into the woods and had a spiritual event. DB Mac, what's up, buddy? I don't think there's a word called Catholicism. I think it's Catholicism. But it is Christianity. I believe. Right on, Jager. Right on. I grew up Catholic too. I was baptized, did my Holy Communion, confirmated. My mom was a church school teacher. But it is Catholic. Like, Catholic and Christianity are Christianity, what? Methodists, Baptists, and Catholics all fall under, and Protestant. What religions fall under the label of Christianity?
Christianity includes major groups such as Catholicism, Protestantism, Eastern Orthodoxy, and Oriental Orthodoxy. These branches, which all share belief in Jesus, include many different denominations, such as Baptists, Methodists, and Lutherans, but they differ in their specific beliefs, practices, and how they are governed.
And then it says major branches of Christianity. Roman Catholics, led by the Pope, emphasizing tradition, sacraments, and churches. Eastern Orthodox. I don't know. It's all a big scam. Just hanging out with Jesus on my spare time, talking to Jesus when I'm like hanging out downstairs in my studio. Jesus knows I love him. Thank you, Lifetime. Oh, I agree. I agree 100%, Andy Davis. Like, there's that guy, there's the guy fucking Morg, real weird looking guy, blonde hair. He grew up in like a really like major Catholic like environment, and now he like denounces church as like a business, but like has his own. I don't know. He's a weird dude. He scares me. He looks like a vampire. I agree. I guess we'll find out. We'll find out when shit hits the fan. You know what I mean? Mikey, just do me a favor and send me an email tonight, and I'll give you a call this week. I'll text you this week. Look for a 518 area code. I've read the Bible many times, Andy. He is has a lot of Gnostic stuff. You're right. I think that the Gnostic view is kind of interesting. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty fucking interesting. Not on a live stream, Tyler. I know he does SDL. I saw it. I'll do it when I want though, which will be soon. It's got to be a different. You can't ask for it 5 times in a row, DB Mac. I'm glad that you're here with us, project coordinator. They did seek knowledge. I think it's interesting. I think that's very interesting. The Gnostics, like their beliefs are interesting, but I don't know, I don't know. I think it's weird. I don't know. I just like God. I like Jesus. Jesus likes me. That's the way I look at it. Jesus loves everybody. Good, bad, indifferent. Oh my God, it's cold out. What's the temperature? Ugh. There ain't no fucking lot lizards out there tonight. Damn. $20 is $20. There you go, DB Mac. Let me think of the song to play for you. Got to warm up, DB. There you go, DB Mac. No, don't put your number up here, Tyler. Just send me an email, please. Because even though we know all these people here, there are people lurking, and people like to put fingers in booters, Tyler. It was Jane's addiction outside in. Jane says. Fuck you, Andy Davis. DL, what's up, buddy? He did? All right, last lot lizard story of the night. Thank you, SD. I appreciate that. I was an altar boy too, Chris. I used to ring the little bell. I hated it. All right, here we go. The air over the Texas panhandle was thick, smelling of diesel, cheap fry oil, and destiny. Below the indifferent, star-dusted sky lie Lizzo's kingdom, the gritty oasis truck stop. Lizzo, perched regally upon her slightly stained leatherette throne, had liberated, Jesus Christ, she had liberated from a defunct karaoke bar, surveyed her domain. Tonight, the kingdom was thriving. Every chrome bumper gleamed under the sickly yellow sodium lights, and the subjects were dutifully executing their nightly duties. Lizzo, the queen of the lot lizards, queen of the truck stop prostitutes, the self-proclaimed deity of the deserted highway, was a vision. Her outfit featured approximately 5 pounds of ethically sourced faux gemstones, a 3-foot tall canary yellow wig that defied gravity and logic, and a pair of rhinestone encrusted combat boots that could probably kick through sheet metal. In her hand, she held a scepter, a perfectly polished microphone permanently set to feedback. Brenda, darling, you look positively parched, Lizzo called out, her voice carrying a theatric boom of a woman who was used to being heard over idling engines. Hydrate, honey. Your hustle needs that glow, and I need those margins. Brenda, a woman specializing in extensional dread and long-haul truckers with philosophical inclinations, nodded miserably and went back to leaning against a fuel island. Lizzo sighed. It was a beautiful night for commerce. The trucks were coming and going, the money was flowing, and the only tension was the low electric hum of the fluorescent lights trying their best not to explode. Then the ground shook. It wasn't a gentle rumble of a Peterbilt hauling livestock. This was a tectonic assault, a bass note so deep it vibrated the fillings in Lizzo's teeth. The subjects froze. Tyrone, whose special skill was selling stale jerky at a marked up price, dropped a bag of barbecue chips. The shadow fell across the gritty oasis. From the dirt road that led nowhere and everywhere, a vehicle emerged, not rolling but stomping. It was a late-modeled Ford F-250 chassis lifted so high it resembled a metallic giraffe, smeared head to toe in mud and the color of old gravy. Its tires were the height of a small refrigerator, and painted across the grille in chipped blood-red letters was the name, the Sister Slayer. The truck pulled into the parking lot with the subtlety of a collapsing warehouse, crushing 3 rows of discarded pallets and flattening the beloved, albeit mangy, stray cat named Mittens. The engine roared one last guttural blast, and the driver's side door, which was actually a rusty sheet of bent utility metal, was kicked open. Out of the towering cab descended the single most terrifying woman Lizzo had ever seen. And Lizzo had seen Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in a lavender sundress. This woman was anti-Lizzo. She wore thick, oil-stained denim overalls that seemed welded to her frame, heavy work boots caked in fresh mud, and a threadbare plaid flannel vest. Her hair was cropped aggressively short, revealing a neck thick as a redwood stump, and her face was a landscape of grim determination, sharp angles, and a healthy collection of facial hair that had clearly never met a razor, nor desired to. She looked like a defensive lineman who moonlighted as a lumberjack, and she radiated the aura of pure, uncompromising Texan vengeance. This was Gertrude, Lizzo's twin sister Gertie. Gertie landed on the asphalt with a sickening heavy thud. She didn't look around, her eyes pale and sharp, locked immediately on to the glinted figure of the queen. Lizzo! Gertie rumbled, her voice like gravel being poured down a pipe. You got real soft, real glittery. Lizzo slowly adjusted her crown, maintaining the facade of calm despite the sudden panic that was making her rhinestone-encrusted butt sweat. Oh, honey, Lizzo drawled, placing her microphone scepter on the armrest. Look what the backhoe dragged in. And here I thought Mother finally managed to successfully hide you in that abandoned missile silo. Gertie spat a wad of chewing tobacco onto the pavement, which sizzled briefly on the residual heat. You know why I'm here, Cassandra? Lizzo recoiled. Only family members used her birth name. We don't use the C word in this establishment, Gertrude. And I'm guessing you're not here for a complimentary mini massage and a review of my quarterly earnings. I'm here for what you took from me 40 years ago, you flamboyant disaster, Gertie snarled, flexing a bicep the size of a Thanksgiving turkey. The bicep was tattooed with a fading portrait of a very angry squirrel. I'm here for the dignity you stole from me when we were 4. The subjects of Lizzo's kingdom exchanged a nervous glance. Brenda whispered to Tyrone, is she talking about the incident with the raspberry lipstick? Lizzo's eyes narrowed, the memory suddenly fresh. The day young Cassie had discovered their mother's makeup drawer and decided 4-year-old Gertrude needed a full, aggressive drag transformation just before their Aunt Patty's wedding. Waving a hand dismissively. You look fierce, Gertie. That bright blue eyeshadow really brought out the latent rage in your spirit. It took 3 weeks of industrial solvent to get that mascara off my eyelids, Cassandra. I miss kindergarten picture day. I look like a psychedelic raccoon, Gertie roared. That was the day I swore off the soft life. That was the day I became tough. Gertie reached into the cab of the Sister Slayer and retrieved her weapon, a massive rusty axle, still sticky with grease and possibly a little bit of Mitten's blood. Now, we finish this, so help me God and this rusty piece of vehicular manslaughter. The fight began with a kind of primal rage only two sisters who have hated each other since any stage can be mustered. Lizzo relied on her agility and sheer fabulousness, stayed on the defense, while Gertie, fueled by 40 years of bitterness over being forced to wear glittery lip gloss, charged. Gertie swung the axle. Lizzo, with a high-pitched shriek of dramatic indignation, leapt backward, performing an emergency split that would have won her the gold medal in the Olympic gymnastic of sass. The axle slammed into the leatherette throne, reducing it to sparse foam and broken springs. Rude! That was vintage 1993, you monster! Lizzo cried. Less talk, more bruising. Gertie didn't break a stride. She was a freight train of flannel and fury, surprisingly fast for a woman who looked like she was carved out of granite. Gertie tackled Lizzo, driving her into a stack of replacement tires. The impact was brutal, knocking the wind out of the queen and scattering her impressive blonde wig, which rolled away like a golden tumbleweed. Aha! Gertie crowd, mounting her sister and pinning her shoulders down with immense calloused hands. No more distractions, just grit and broken bones. Gertie tried to punch Lizzo, but Lizzo was too quick. She whipped out a hand, grabbed a handful of rough, bristly hair on Gertie's head, and yanked. You need deep conditioning treatment, darling. You're dry as a Mojave. Gertie screamed, not from pain, but from the sudden, intimate insult to her rugged hygiene. She threw Lizzo off, sending her skidding across the parking, scrambled backward, feeling the grease and gravel digging into her sequenced boots. She saw the discarded wig lying in a puddle of motor oil. A brilliant, terrifying idea struck her. As Gertie advanced, Lizzo grabbed the wig, now soaked in oil, and hurled it like a greasy boomerang. It hit Gertie square in the face, blinding her momentarily with the lacquered synthetic hair. Take that, you unsanitary beast! That's grade A Brazilian blend. Roaring, Gertie pulled the wig off and tossed it aside, leaving a slick, dark trail of oil around her eyes. She grabbed the nearest weapon, a heavy-duty wrench from a trucker's toolbox. Lizzo knew she needed to weaponize her strengths. Glamour, light, and blinding accessorization. She reached into her cleavage and pulled out her secret weapon, a small pressurized can of emergency holographic glitter spray intended for quick touch-ups on her clients. You want rough, Gertie? I'll give you rough beauty. Gertie charged, swinging the wrench in a deadly arc aimed for Lizzo's head. Lizzo ducked under the swing, rolled forward, and then found herself directly under her sister's massive, jutting jaw. She dispensed the nozzle. Psh! A torrent of fine diamond shard holographic glitter infused with industrial strength adhesive exploded upward, coating Gertie's entire face, eyes, nostrils, and the stubble hair on her chin in a blinding, shimmering cloud of pure fabulousness. Gertie stopped dead, staggered backwards, and choked, agonizing gasp. The glitter had sealed her eyelids shut and was burning her nose. It burns, the sparkles, it's in my lungs, Gertie thrashed wildly, waving the wrench blindly. I can't see the lack of beauty. Lizzo seized the advantage, stood up on shaky legs, grabbed her microphone scepter, which, upon closer inspection, was heavily studded with actual metal spikes. This is what happens, Gertie, when you try and bring your dusty pedestrian hatred into my vibrant, financial, stabled kingdom. Lizzo leapt onto the hood of a nearby, relatively clean semi-truck, gaining elevation. She used the height to launch herself onto the flailing Gertie, delivering a flying, twin-booted drop kick directly into Gertie's sternum. Crunch! Gertie went down like a monster truck she drove, landing in a heap of mud, flannel, and agonizing glitter. The wrench clattered away. Lizzo was breathing heavy, landed elegantly, somehow managed to keep her boots mostly clean. She stood over her twin, victorious, her chest rising and falling beneath her spectacular ripped booty. Gertie laid on the asphalt, her massive frame trembled. She tried opening her eyes, but the holographic glitter held firm, sealing her sight shut. You cheated, Gertie wheezed, tasting metallic glitter. You used vanity. I used my resources, darling, Lizzo corrected, adjusting a stray curl. Survival in this economy requires both brute force and taste. You only brought one, and it was mostly brute. Lizzo put the spiked heel on her sister's chest, leaning down close. Now, Gertie, since I just saved you a fortune on an eye lift, I'm going to make you an offer. You got two choices. You can stay here and work off the damage to my throne, or you can take that hideous vehicle in your ugly ass attitude and drive it back out to that silo. Gertie struggled, but the weight of the queen combined with the physical and the agony of being defeated by makeup was just too much. I hate glitter, Gertie mumbled. Then drive on, sister, Lizzo commanded, removing her heel. And next time, bring a better foundation. You look rough. Gertie groaned, pulling herself up, blinded, and stumbled back toward her monster truck. She managed to climb in somehow, fumbled with the ignition. A moment later, Sister Slayer roared back to life. Gertie managed a messy 10-point turn through the rest of the parking lot, taking out 2 street lamps and an ice machine before finally pointing the massive truck back toward the way she came. As the roar faded, a profound silence fell over the gritty oasis. Lizzo's subjects, Brenda and Tyrone, and the collection of truckers who had witnessed this bizarre display of sibling rivalry slowly emerged from behind the fuel tanks. Lizzo surveyed the damaged, a ruined throne, flattened pallets, and a distinct shimmering trail of holographic glitter leading into the Texas darkness. It was going to be an expensive cleanup. Lizzo picked up her scepter. Well, that was certainly aggressive, she said, dusted off the remaining rhinestones. Tyrone, get me 2 of those barbecue chip bags to go. I need quick calories. And Brenda, darling, we have to upholster the chair to replace. And the night is still young. The queen looked out at the silent, awestruck crowd, then summoned her deepest, most powerful voice projection and declared, "The kingdom remains intact. And remember, children, never underestimate the power of a perfectly executed smoky eye." With the immediate threat neutralized and the monarchy secured, the business of the night resumed. The diesel smelled a little sweeter and the fry oil a little crisper, and the lingering threat of industrial strength glitter hung in the air. A glittering, horrible reminder of the night the lot lizard queen secured her crown with a can of emergency sparkle spray. Damn it. Stormy Light. VUSD. Thank you, Hollow. All right. I live in Nebraska, and I've been having a similar experience. Weird noises, unexplained occurrences. I lived with my grandparents, and they have a very Catholic and religious, but are nice people. The window of my room is on the second floor, and there was a pretty sizable branch of a tree that went all the way up and covered about halfway of the window. It would scratch my window at windy nights, but that would be oddly calming. I enjoyed thunderstorms and such because I would fall asleep quickly. Anyway, it all started around 2012 or so. I remember the first time it happened because it was just weird. The dishwasher turned on somehow in the middle of the night. I remember waking up hearing a low rumble and my grandparents walking around and whispering. Curious, I got up to see where they had gone. On the way, I heard a rumble stop in the kitchen. I saw my granddad was fiddling with the dishwasher. My granddad hated the dishwasher. It was very noisy and didn't even wash the dishes very well. We always just hand washed. That was probably the first time it had been turned on in years. It was weird. For about 7 years, very little scattered things happened that my parents chalked up to God trying to get our attention. I didn't really believe that, but I had no other explanation, so I went with it. I am not religious. I just went with it to satisfy them. I didn't really think about it too hard. The other major thing that happened was over the summer, and it really puzzled me. Family from another state was staying at our house for a visit. They are cool people, but they are a big family. There was one night when a lot of weird stuff happened. I was sleeping in the living room on the floor with two of my cousins, and my older female cousin was staying in the hearth room on the couch. I was staying up late watching my phone YouTube. Everyone else was asleep. I heard my cousin Molly, not her real name, in the other room start to laugh hysterically. I thought it was kind of funny and thought she was just answering a late night call, or that my goof said something on the way to get a drink of water or something that was funny. A few hours later woke up screaming. I have a special needs cousin, Annie, not real name, who screams a lot when she's scared or in pain. A commotion ensued, and we had no idea what was wrong. I tried to ignore it. The adults always took care of it. She was saying something about get him away from me and kept referring to him. She got settled after a while, and we all fell back to sleep. The next morning, my aunt said that Annie said she saw something that wanted to attack her. We just thought she was seeing things while she was sleeping. My cousin also denied that she started laughing at all, and no one else heard it. The biggie happened much more recently. 2 months ago, it was actually fairly small, but it scared the living shit out of me. I was staying up late working on a project for physics and was on the dining room table. I have two adorable parakeets that also reside in the dining room. We rarely eat there. We mostly eat at a different table at night. They're always chirping, making a bunch of noise, really cute. I was working when I heard them start squawking and doing weird things. They were already supposed to be asleep, and I had a towel over their cage because they get cold in the winter. I heard them run into the cage a few times and rushed over to the cage and took the towel off. They were both shaking and looked like they were terrified of something. They then huddled in the back corner of the cage, which they never do. I was also confused when I saw something out of the corner of my eye. The cage was right. God damn it. The cage was right next to the huge window, and out the window, I saw a huge creature darting away. It was running down the middle of the road. I was frozen in horror. I have no idea what it was. All right, 3 hours in. I am beat tired. Ugh. I'm calling it a good night too. Guys, thank you for a good night. I really had a lot of fun. Thank you for everyone being here tonight. Thank you for those of you who really unbelievably blessed me tonight. Holy cow. That was so nice of you guys right in the beginning. Like, holy cow. Never expect it. But are you a good robot or bad robot? I am neither. Thank you, Conscious. I hope you guys like the Lizzo stories. I love the Lizzo stories tonight, man. They were freaking awesome. DB Mac, it's always a pleasure to make you smile every Saturday. And with that, have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Stay safe. And I'm trying to think of what to do for. I am going to check that out. I wrote that down, actually. You didn't see me, but it's right here. I'm going to do some more Super Soldier stuff this week, I think. I've got some really interesting stuff that I want to share with you. Vertebreaker, what's up, my friend? So be safe and have a wonderful rest of your night. Terry Marshall, Sonny, SD, Alexis, I love you all. Sonia, have a good night. See you next week. Oh, one more time. How cool is that shirt? That's the band I was talking about at the beginning of or the live stream last week. But it's an alien on the Sphinx. So cool. All right. Love you guys. Don't let your meatloaf and stay safe.